this argument that seems to just logically fall apart, that we can't end a war because the war might pick up at some point in the future, and therefore if we don't have a perfect guarantee that, I mean, what, even if it, I mean, I don't know, I've heard the entire time through this war, including on your show, Pierce, that if Putin was successful in Ukraine, then he was going to move on Poland, right? Like, this is what Joe Biden kept saying. This was the official, like, you know, fear mongering of this war. And so if you're telling me that even NATO membership isn't a guarantee, then yes, we never have a perfect guarantee. By the way, you also don't have a guarantee from any government in the history of the world. That doesn't mean that ending a war isn't still a positive. And I just want to go back to what was, you know, brought up initially. You know, the idea that this was a case of failed deterrence, and that if only we had deterred Vladimir Putin sooner, then we could have avoided this whole thing. I mean, let's just kind of quickly overlook the last 20 years of U.S. foreign policy in Europe. We've expanded NATO all the way to Vladimir Putin's borders. We constantly floated out the idea for years that we would include Ukraine at some point, give them full membership. We said point blank in 2008 at the Bucharest summit that we were bringing Georgia and Ukraine into NATO before Russia ended up going to war with Georgia there. And then we I mean, look, Pierce, like we've done this before on the show too, right? But just imagine, if you can, have a little bit of strategic empathy and put yourself in the Russian shoes. If Russia, let's say the Soviet Union had never collapsed, and the Soviet Union had poured $100 million into a Mexican street protest that overthrew a democratically elected government, and they had been saying for years they were going to bring Mexico into their military alliance, and then when the new government came up, they recognized them immediately and started arming them, as Donald Trump foolishly bragged about the other day with Zelensky in the Oval Office. Pierce, do you think Americans would feel that was deterrence, or do you think we might view that as a provocation? I mean, like, it's just,
stop
by
using
the way,
logic,
when
Dave.
Donald
Stop
Trump,
using logic, Dave.
Well, look, when
let me
Donald
ask, well, rather
Trump
than me try and
very quickly,
answer a very logical question, let me get Jake to respond to that.
So the first thing that he said, what is the concern if Russia takes Ukraine? If Russia can't even go 60 kilometers deep and take the city of Pokrovsk, what is the threat to NATO? And it's, yes, absorbing a country of 40 million people, absorbing a country that has $10 trillion of natural resources under the ground. It's the strategic location on the Black Sea. If Russia absorbs Ukraine, they will Russify the people. They will annihilate the Ukrainian identity, turn them into Russians, and then start press ganging them into the military and send them into meat wave attacks against the Baltics, against Poland and the Suwalki Gap. We're trying to prevent Russia from getting stronger. And I don't care about what Russia thinks or feels. Russia is not a great power. Russia has an economy the same size roughly as Spain. Do you think Spain is a great power that the United States should respect?
Exactly, dude. Listen, we are in the business of trying to be a world empire, and we're going broke. We're $36 trillion in debt because we can't afford to do it. We've blown $8 trillion in the last 20 years on foreign wars.
Why is Donald Trump talking about invading Greenland? Why is Donald Trump talking about invading Panama?
I don't agree with that.
Why is Donald Trump talking about annexing Canada? Why is he talking about ethnic cleansing in the Gaza Strip? That is empire.
See, you lost
red herring.
You lost the point.
Stay on
pushing
topic,
for America to be a global empire.
That's a total red herring. Total red herring.
Total
red herring.
And by the way, I don't support.
Go after
the guy who
argument.
smokes and spends all day arguing with strippers and OnlyFans girls going to speak up? I don't know.
They
who
make
this
better
guy
arguments
is.
than you do,
General
bro.
Ben Hodges,
it's not my fault
thank
that you
so
have a
much
low
for your
IQ,
service to
lower
this
IQ
country.
than a stripper
You're
and an
a hero.
OnlyFans
You're
girl.
an expert. These other guys, I can't take them serious.